Hello and welcome back to the Red and White podcast. A little bit more of an upbeat one today. I can finally say those words with a little bit of enthusiasm and a little bit optimism. Today, joined by Michael, not only a Wimbledon fan, but the matchday commentator, matchday announcer. You haven't missed a Wimbledon game since 1971, is that right, mate?
1989.
1989. Don't know where I got 71 from, but...
That's when I was born.
well, no reason for that then. How are you, mate? Are you good? We'll get onto your game earlier later on.
Yeah. Keep it brief on that, hopefully, Jack. If that's all right with you, mate.
No, we'll go right into it. And from Sunderland, a face who might be familiar to a lot of people watching, got the YouTube channel Gilesy. Gilesy, mate, how are you?
I'm out of the mood today, like, to be honest. First time in a while I can see that.
I know. I was saying earlier, like, it's just nice to have watched us play a game of football and actually just enjoy it the entire way through and not feel as if there was anything that we could complain at. Or, you know, I mean, 4 goals, a clean sheet, a couple of the young lads. I mean, Jack Diamond was a young lad who had a great game. There's so much to talk about. Mikey, I'm going to come to you first. Your game today, 5-2 Charlton. Just a quick word on that. I presume a not so successful day at the office.
Not particularly, Jack. No, I mean, what happened was, we were actually 2-1 up at half time. We went 1-0 down 10 minutes before the break. Connor Washington scored for them. Then we got 2 goals in the space of about 5 minutes. So we actually started the second half 2-1 up. And then there was a couple of substitutions that Lee Bowyer made. Obviously for Charlton, one of which, just to add insult to injury, was a former, dare I say that, Milton Keynes retail
franchise.
Those are the ones. And then he had got an assist and a goal, Chuck's Anike, and then we went 3-2 down in the space of a minute. And then it was just in the end a complete defensive capitulation. We've then used up all 5 subs, chucked the kitchen sink at them, plus a few other like self-assembly furniture units. And then we've given them two goals away in like the closing stages. So maybe the scoreline just a kind of a tad harsh, but of course when you've got individual defensive errors at times and then collectively when you just don't get the ball clear, of course a team like Charlton, you know, they're going to punish you all day long. And, you know, on top of the 4-2 home defeat we had last Saturday against Bristol Rovers, another team who was struggling near the bottom. But then just before that, we beat Peterborough, who were actually in the automatic. I mean, the defence was absolutely rock solid as we held out for the win. So, again, I don't know what to expect the next game. I mean, if you guys do what you did today and we defend like we did today, then, do you know what I mean? You're going to have to get an extension on your scoreboard maybe at the Stadium of Light.
I don't know about that, like. I think it's the only time we've scored more than 2 goals or something all season. So is inconsistency a problem for you, would you say, above anything else?
Yeah, defending, unfortunately. I think we hold the record for, in League One, or it might even be the whole sort of EFL, for most points lost from a leading position. I think we're up to 19 points. I mean, we've had lots of games where we've taken the lead. And if you're an opposing player, opposing fan, then obviously it guarantees you a reasonably pleasant experience when playing us. But obviously if you're on the Wimbledon side of things and you're having to sort of be upbeat in front of all the listeners and the people in the ground, and obviously you don't want them all dialing up to the Samaritans at the same time. It doesn't kind of doesn't really bode particularly well. So that's a defensive frailty. I mean, that's the key. If we score a goal, then the next 5 to 10 minutes, generally as a rule of thumb this season, is the time maybe we're at our most vulnerable to conceding potentially an equaliser. So, you know, you can have that tip for free. It's not me breaching any secrets here. That's all that information and goal times are in the public domain. So, yeah, we're not really too confident maybe going into Tuesday. But again, going away to a big club on a Tuesday, 10 days before Christmas, thank you, Santa. Those are sometimes the occasions in which the real resilience can sometimes shine through. So, again, having held out against Peterborough, but then capitulated today and against Bristol Rovers, I'll be honest, mate, I wouldn't be able to predict exactly what you guys might be able to expect on Tuesday.
Yeah, I mean, from the sounds of it, you've got a Jack Ross style thing going on with giving goals away in the next 10 minutes, you just completely fall off. Giles, today, I mean, no one can have any complaints about the result, nor the performance for the most part. One thing that I picked up on, and, I didn't want to be negative, but before we got our goal, which admittedly was a penalty, and it was a controversial penalty. A lot of people would probably say that we got that quite easy. They had two really clear-cut chances. Does it at all worry you in the slightest that if we hadn't got the penalty, the game could have went very differently, and the scoreline could have been flipped on its head?
Well, I was watching the match. I was saying, and I said it in my video as well. The two mistakes, they got let off the first time, they got let off the second time. There'll not be a third. That's why some people want Sanderson to start at right back because of his pace. We got caught twice on the counter, and to be honest, I think it was Jackson. He'd be kicking himself in the head because he should have put them two chances away. And then it's a totally different game. They sit back, they park the bus like most teams have done against us in recent games. But I'm absolutely out of the moon with every man in the Sunderland shirt today. It's Lee Johnson's got to get credit for what he's done. He's changed the formation. He's brought in Jack Diamond and a bit more youth, and he's brought in McGeady, who's like a new signing. I cannot understand why Jack Ross would leave a man of his ability, just ostracise him out the club like he has, when the fans were on Parkinson's back to start with. So you've got to look at it like that. What was he thinking? But absolutely every man, I was out of the moon with. He doesn't get much credit, is Max Power. Even in the 90th minute, he was bursting forward. He was trying to set Will Grigg up so Will Grigg could get on the score sheet and get off to a run, like on a run, hopefully. But I was over the moon with Power. I couldn't pick them out of the match in my match review. I just couldn't pick it because the majority of the team were like 9s and 10s, all of them. And with AFC Wimbledon on Tuesday, it's so weird with not having fans. You cannot win. Look at Hull today, they got beat. Do you know what I mean? They fly in top of the league. I think it was at Shrewsbury. They got beat 1-0 off today.
Yeah, Shrewsbury.
So you've got to look at it like every game's not a certainty. We kind of got it, and just because we beat Lincoln, who's in second 4-0, expected beat Wimbledon just because we've done a performance like we have today. Every game's different, and it's with Corona and no fans there. It's an even playing field in my eyes.
Well, I don't know about that because obviously the only pick that can really, really, really affect the result of the players. And I think if you look compare our squads on paper, we've probably got a lot more quality throughout the pitch, as much as a lot of fans would probably like to try to disagree with that. Obviously, you touched on Jack Diamond there. I mean, McGeady as well. But for me, with Diamond, it seems so blatantly obvious that we had a player there who can bring something a bit different. I think McGeady's been screaming out to come in all season. But at least with Diamond, that there wasn't these man management issues going on, whatever you want to make of the McGeady rumours. But to me, it seems absolutely baffling how we have a player in Jack Diamond there who just seems to have things that we don't have at all. And for me, that's pace, being innovative, having real initiative, taking responsibility and going forward, creating chances. It's something we've struggled with all season, and it just baffles me why he never really got given a chance, but when he did, he got given a chance at right wing back, as opposed to going forward, but when he doesn't have the responsibility of defending, so he can just go and commit. I mean, like, why do you think Parkinson's kept him out for so long?
Yeah, to be honest, I couldn't tell you. Arnie Parkinson knows that, but you've got to look at it. It wasn't just Diamond he was putting out of position. He was putting 09 at centre back, Conor McLaughlin at centre back, Gooch at left wing back. He was playing like quite a hell of a lot of players out of their position, and I thought, you know what, Gooch is not going to play at MK Dons game because Gooch come out and went, I'm only doing a job playing at left wing back. It's not where I want to be. I want to be further up the pitch. And he come out that on an interview. So I thought, Parkinson's not going to play him for that. But he got that injury. So it's crazy how Parkinson couldn't see what fans could see. And if fans are singing it, surely he was singing it. Diamond's movement off the ball is amazing.
Fantastic.
His movement is... He's against Oldham, he seemed levels above the rest of the team, including McGeady. But like you see, Lee Johnson, he's putting his stamp on it now. And I really think that the team absolutely love playing for him. I watched Jack Diamond's interview after the match, and he was just, even though he got took off at half time because of the yellow card and he was going to get sent off, he was so like he seemed really happy and upbeat and optimistic. So I just really think that we're going to do well this season. I've got a funny feeling. I had a funny feeling that we'll beat Lincoln, and I was right. But I thought it was just going to be 1-0, not 4. Could have been more as well. Could have been more.
Yeah, I mean, genuinely, if we'd kept pushing, you said Max Power as well at some point. He's a player I've criticised so much this season in particular, towards the end of last season a little bit as well, where I just didn't see what he was contributing. But I think I've seen it now where he's got a lot to offer us. We just weren't getting the best out of him when we were playing with 3 at the back, and I think that's because the nature of the role in Phil Parkinson's 3-4-3 or 3-5-2 system was that the centre midfielders had to drop off quite a bit to allow the wing backs in particular to go forward and to make sure we have someone there to recover and recycle possession when things don't work out. And I thought that's all he was being used for, was to just be the anchor almost defensively for when things didn't work out, just to pass it out wide again. And that was his only instruction. But I think now where he's got a little bit more freedom, and I notice it with a lot of players have a lot more freedom, is the word I would use under Lee Johnson. I think we're getting more out of them, and I think the more that you give Power a freedom, you don't restrain him and restrict him, the better he's going to become. Michael, I want to ask you. I want to bring you back in there. Just so far this season, yeah. I mean, you haven't had a terrible start this season, but he's about 14th in the league. Is that where you were expecting to be around about now, or a bit higher, a bit lower?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, 14th. I mean, it's obviously that it's higher than we've ever kind of finished in the kind of 5 seasons in League One, and it's a much better sort of start than perhaps maybe we were expecting. We were always sort of in and around maybe the basement sort of places. Sometimes we do venture slightly higher after a little, the odd good run here and there over the last kind of 4 or 5 years, but then we always inevitably find ourselves dropping down a few places. But it's always, no matter how well you do compared with previous years, if you see that there's been the opportunity to maybe, turn a defeat into a draw or a draw into a win, as fans, you're always kind of in your own mind raising the bar about maybe where potentially you could be. And obviously after the last couple of defeats, we could have been knocking on playoff places potentially, and yet we showed what we could do when we managed to see off Peterborough again with all their impressive players, with all the little flicks and tricks, etc. But we managed to remain defensively resolute and see them off. Bristol Rovers last week, I suppose you could argue that Tisdale's just started down there. Again, maybe a side who are better than the early season results perhaps would have suggested. Charlton, obviously, perennial kind of playoff sort of chasers anyway. But again, we were winning 2-1 at half time. So again, it's certain to a certain extent, it's all pretty kind of unpredictable. And when we look at maybe a Tuesday night, particularly in the wake of obviously your result today at Lincoln, obviously we're going to have to really kind of redouble our defensive efforts. I mean, from the last couple of visits up to the Stadium of Light, obviously we lost 1-0 and lost 3-1 with that Chris Maguire hat-trick last season. It seems as though you've still got pretty much kind of the nucleus of that kind of squad. There's a number of players who kind of ring, not just about like Max Power, Chris Ledbetter, Charlie Wyke, McGeady, who got the only goal of the game, with a brilliant finish a couple of years ago. I think Maguire started on the bench for you guys today. Came on, I think, in the second half. But again, he grabbed that hat-trick kind of last season. Obviously, Will Grigg, I don't know how much he's been on fire for you guys this season. I don't know if maybe that's one of the more... About him. Yeah, well, this is the thing, because obviously having arrived from that £4 million, whatever it was, again, I don't know whether you guys maybe view him as having potentially underperformed maybe in the time that he's been with you. So you've got a kind of a familiarity with, again, some very familiar names from the last kind of couple of years. So to a certain extent, we should know what to expect. But it's a case of making sure that you're fully defensively drilled. Obviously, when it's a packed house at the Stadium of Light, it's going to be a totally different proposition to when it's going to be more or less empty. And I think we've seen that a lot this season, where teams have gone away from home and they don't have that really partisan element of home support to perhaps cope with. So maybe that might be something that could, swing it slightly in our favour, or at least make it less potentially damaging. But certainly I would expect a much closer game perhaps than we both maybe experienced this afternoon.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I feel as if we're a little bit unpredictable at the moment, where we had a great result today, and obviously we did quite well in midweek against Oldham. But obviously before that, before Lee Johnson came in, well, his first game, I mean, it wasn't really his first game, but his first game in charge, and then under Parkinson we're being so badly. So I'm struggling to predict how it's going to go. You said, I think before we started recording, that you're a bit all over the place tactically. If you had to put your finger on it, right, roughly kind of what system formation you're tending to go with this season?
I think probably one of the biggest things that's been kind of discussed amongst fans, particularly on days when, excuse me, things haven't gone particularly according to plan, is the kind of the three at the back kind of defensive system where a couple of wing backs kind of employed as well. And I think a lot of people feel that leaves us potentially vulnerable, and you generally you don't usually find the opposing manager has to be an absolute tactical genius in order to exploit that at times. I mean, we've got Joe Pigott obviously up front. I mean, he's hit 11 goals so far this season, already 6 in the last month back at the new ground already. So, there's no doubt he scored a great goal today. No doubt he's obviously the catalyst. He's the captain of the club as well going forward. It's just a case of what other players can do to maybe kind of back him up and make sure he doesn't find himself completely isolated. Sometimes we can find that, is that we sometimes play sometimes away from home. Pigott will be the lone striker. We'll play a 4-5-1 or a 4-3-2-1 or whatever. And sometimes it can be he can find himself in a little bit of a thankless task and find him a bit kind of isolated, which means at times we're a little bit toothless. But when we can get the players in and around, positions in and around Pigott and be more kind of supportive, that's when we can sort of exert our best kind of periods of pressure. But it's just a case of obviously the goals we've conceded, particularly 9 in the last 2 league games, obviously cause for concern. And now, as a result of that, as you would expect, that kind of 3 at the back has come under additional scrutiny today. So again, will be very interesting to see if we try and set out in a little bit more of a kind of more compact and a more robust, perhaps, system going into Tuesday night's match.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you've got the players and the tactics there to do it, I think playing 3 at the back is a far more effective way of playing football. I think the pitch is wider. I think you've always got that option to go out wide without question. And I think you got a more solid line there with 3 centre-backs as opposed to 2 full-backs and a centre-back. And I think it can sometimes get a bit confused as to who goes forward and who goes back. And you either have 2 defenders or you have 4. I do really rate 3 at the back. See, the system Parkinson persisted with. Gilesy, would you have changed it to the 4 at the back? I mean, looking back in hindsight, I can't see how anyone wouldn't. But why do you think it stopped working for us?
Well, I think the Sunderland, the team now, we're all crying now for flat back 4. I think the system was, but by the time we've got down the wing with Hume, by the time he's checked, instead of delivering a ball straight in, he holded it up or he passed it forward, but then it would stagnate in the left or the right side, and that gives the opposition time to set and get square, and we couldn't break them down. Everybody was just parking the bus against us on the wing backs, and plus there's less in midfield for us with Ledbetter. In recent games, he has been sitting so deep, and then Powell was a defensive midfielder, and I'm sure correct us if I'm wrong. Is Scowen a defensive midfielder?
Before he came to Sunderland, almost his entire career, he played as a defensive midfielder. But he seems to me as if Parkinson was trying to get him to go forward, but he seemed useless to me going forward in and around the box. There's no creativity, or he just used to smash it over the bar. I found.
Well, in recent videos, I criticised Scowen for his set pieces. When he was in the box, he was ballooning every attempt over the bar. But then, given his credit, he did finish the header from Ledbetter's cross against Oldham, and he got his goal and he got us through to the next round, really, with that. But today, he did look all right. He went off injured. He tried to carry on. He went off injured, but he did look all right. Well, all of them did, to be honest. I couldn't have, like I said before, I couldn't have picked them out of the match. But going back to the formation, for quite a while, Sunderland, with the 3 centre-backs, so it just wasn't working. And for a good while, fans were saying we need this change. We need it either two up the top or three, like a 4-3-3. A bit more creativity, a bit more in the midfield would be a bit better. A bit more. So I think honestly now, take away the Wimbledon game where Bailey Wright had a nightmare. I just think he was getting used to the flat back four because he's been so used to having two centre backs alongside him that with only having one in Flanagan, he just couldn't get his bearings. So today he had a solid game. Bailey Wright, he didn't do nothing wrong. Flanagan as well with the flat back four. He come out to the defence quite a few times, and the ball. Did you see the ball to Maguire? It was amazing. It was a class ball, and he beat the player, squared it for Wyke. I much prefer this formation what we're playing. It's like a 4-3-3, but I like it like a diamond shape, if you know what I mean. That's I like to have like just like in front of the defence, obviously to protect them, and then see a Scowen and Power in there. To be honest, I would have played Maguire, but when Maguire has been playing recently, he hasn't been putting the best of performances in. I've been slating him a bit, even though I really do rate Maguire. He hasn't been the best for us. But when he come on today, he was all over. His passing was crisp. He was beating players. There was their defender. I'm not quite sure his name. He's left back, was it? Number 20.
He had a nightmare to.
He did. He got took off in the end. Maguire was skinning him all over. So the formation for me, it's been a breath of fresh air now, I think, in this for the Sunderland team.
Yeah, I think it has as well. I mean, one thing I always say is that out wide, we were getting figured out and we had no plan B to go through the middle. But I think now we've went from 3 defenders to 4. We've shored it up a bit. And we've got more options through the middle now where Leadbitter can sit back, but I actually think he pulls the strings in an attacking sense sometimes just to switch the play and things as he used to do. But I think part of the reason we're more creative going forward in the last few games is because of Max Power, a player who I've criticised so much. But as I say, I think it's because he's unrestrained. He doesn't have the restriction that Parkinson used to put on him of you have to just you have to sit back and when you get the ball, you play it out wide. He's now got the freedom to just go forward and do it as he pleases. And I think that's when you get the best out of him. He's that type of player where if you just let him float around the midfield, get in and around the right pockets of space, the right areas, he will create chances and he will score goals. There's another centre midfielder, Josh Scowen. I was trying to ask you, like, set pieces aside, what are your thoughts on him? Because he's a player I've been criticising quite a lot recently. I think George Dobson gets a really bad rap for his actual ability. I think George Dobson's heavily underrated by most Sunderland fans. Out of those two, if you don't rate Scowen, would you bring him in or do you rate Scowen?
Well, I'm the same as you, mate. I've been criticising Scowen. Really, he got put on set pieces, and he's not the best at delivering a ball into the box, even beating the first man. And to be honest, I'd still put him in ahead of Dobson. I really would. I have criticised him a lot, but against Oldham and today, he's upped these games. It might just be with the new manager, new head coach coming in and giving him like a different role to what like you say with Power, but Parkinson might add on Scowen. With Max Power, I've criticised him as well, just like but like today, he was outstanding. I was going to say a man of the match, but I couldn't pick a man of the match. I really couldn't. So, like you've just said, it's been what Parkinson's been drilling into him for all this time. Now, it's as if they were allowed to play and express themselves on the pitch and play with a bit of freedom. And you could see in the gameplay the way they were playing, the way the movement, the passing. Like you said, sometimes he was playing deep, but he's like our orchestrator in midfield. He dictates the player. He's passing. If it's pressure on one side, he'll get it nice and cool, and he'd put a 70-yard pass in or something. You know what I mean? And he'd move the play over to the opposite side. Sorry. So I it's all what Parkinson was telling them, mate. I said Jack Ross, didn't I, earlier?
Yeah, you did. Yeah, I didn't want to pick it up, but you did. Yeah.
I did. I meant Parkinson. Sorry, I've just clicked on there. They've just gone off what Parkinson has just drummed into them for that long. That's how when Lee Johnson took over, we got beat in the Wigan game. I know he was only there 3 hours, but
He didn't. I think he might have had one meeting with the team maybe on the night before. That's it, you know.
But like I was saying, mate, they still had the ghost of Parkinson around them, and his words drumming in the ears. So that's how they probably say the Wigan game. You can just write that off, really. Good performance against Oldham with Eufane. Wasn't the best, let's be honest, the first half. And a really, really unbelievable performance against second in the league, Lincoln. So I think they're just getting used to Lee Johnson, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to what he can do with the team going forward. Michael, you said about Joe Pickett, your striker. Out of your squad and out of the tactics, really, what is it that can really threaten us? Have you got any key players who, just seem to create a chance every game, or someone who only needs that one chance to score? Have you got any tactics that tends to exploit teams that set up in a certain way? Like, what have we got to be worried about as the opposition?
Well, I mean, again, as mentioned, Joe Pickett's the top scorer and the captain. Sometimes can drift out in and out of games, kind of occasionally. But we've had a couple of signings this season. People like we've had Ryan Longman, Ethan Chislett, who are one of these kind of really neat and tidy players where you can slot the ball into their feet and they can kind of spin off the shoulder of a defender, pop up in little holes sometimes between your midfield and your kind of back line. Obviously in these set pieces, we've got we're reasonably decent at kind of sort of the set piece kind of arrangements as well. And we've got some reasonable kind of bites in midfield. We've got Alex Woodyard, who when we signed him in the summer came and obviously a lot of people were very happy that we'd got him because I think he played for Tranmere last season and been around at sort of a few clubs and established a reputation as one of those real dogged kind of midfield players who can get in amongst things, not afraid to find himself in the referee's book, from sort of time to time, really dogged and determined. Similar to the kind of performance we saw at our place a couple of years ago when you came from behind with Lee Catamol. Someone who's again not afraid to just really sort of get in and amongst the opposition and try and stamp their authority on the game. Again, so those are the kind of sort of players we've got. We've got some youngsters who have kind of come through. We've got Jack Rudoni, who's a young kind of a midfielder. He's actually been quite decent recently. We've pushed him up, not necessarily alongside Piggott, but into positions kind of in and around him. So he's got a good kind of attacking sort of brain on him as well. Again, another one who, despite his kind of slight appearance and sort of relatively tender years, is another one who already has slipped into, well, I don't know if you'd call it the Wimbledon tradition of, again, just making sure they're a reasonably formidable physical presence in the middle of the park. Sometimes it's a situation where they play it by ear. One thing we have done this year, I think Giles, you mentioned it a bit earlier on. Potentially, there's been games away this season at Fleetwood, away at Swindon, and away at Rochdale, where we've gone there and we've won by 1-0. Not necessarily parking the bus as such, but again, maybe allowing the opposition to play a little bit, drawing the sting out of them, seeing what they've got to offer. And then sometimes towards the end of the first half, you'd see us push forward, try and establish a bit of an attacking foothold ourselves and try and grab the goal on the break. Obviously, it's one of the kind of the absolute givens in football that you go away from home, you've got to at least set up a really kind of reasonably robust in defence. We saw that today. Charlton started off very high intensity, very high press. We managed to withstand them in the early sort of half an hour or so. Obviously, it didn't quite work out in the latter stages of the game, as you probably have seen. But we do have the capability to kind of sit in there and be a kind of a really decent and compact defensive unit. But at the moment, we've got kind of 5 contenders for the 3 centre-half defensive spots. And I think something that might work slightly against Glyn Hodges maybe at the moment is maybe he's not entirely sure. We've mixed and matched the 3 into the 5 on a number of occasions recently. And it could even be that he's not completely sure of perhaps what his best first choice 3 might be, even though they're all very decent individual players in their own right. But sometimes it's the actual blend of them and how they set up, who takes up the centre and then the either side, the left and the right, that can really sort of determine what kind of an afternoon you're going to have in terms of how robust and how insurmountable your defensive tactics are going to be. So again, if on Tuesday night we come up to your place, and again, don't be surprised if we're sort of again not absolutely parking the bus and absolutely kind of operating on the counter attack. But maybe just again, just taking a bit of a while, if you like, to acclimatise to the game, and then again, gradually maybe presenting more of an attacking threat as the game goes on.
Yeah, I mean, we've played you 3 times now, I think, since coming down to League One, and I mean this in the most respectful way. Every time
I know you've won all 3. I know that. Yeah.
every time we've played you, it hasn't seemed like a huge challenge. I mean, from your perspective as a Wimbledon fan, where do you think it's gone wrong for you in the previous meetings against us?
Yeah, I mean, if you think back to the first one, I mean, back in August of 2018, yeah, well, I mean, we took a sort of, Joe Biggett, I think, was the scorer in that game as well. Obviously, lots and lots of the Sunderland sort of fans there. Incidentally, we'll be able to accommodate about twice as many of you as the new stadium, but obviously we'll see how that goes maybe later on in the year. But yeah, I think in the end, we just kind of, I don't know what it was. We ran out of steam, and maybe Sunderland, having just obviously come down from the Championship, you still had all those players with that little bit of streetwise and a bit of know-how, and obviously probably the most renowned player in that respect, obviously Catamol, come up with the 2 goals. It was certainly a game I didn't feel that we deserved to lose. We shouldn't have lost it. We should have had a penalty. Is it Oviedo? Was it a handball on the goal line? Clear handball. It should have been a penalty. But I mean, overall, again, Sunderland, again, at least certainly give them the credit for the way they came back into the game. And obviously, when you give someone like Catamol that bit of freedom, the opportunity to score what I think in the end were 2 reasonably kind of straightforward goals, obviously you're going to be punished. And then and that was pretty much the case in the return game, 2nd of February of 2019. And again, it was just a
memory
moment.
You've got, Michael.
Yeah, one of those things, mate. Yeah, it's one of those things I got upstairs, unfortunately, or fortunately, if depending on your point of view. But in the end, I think it was a different kettle of fish, maybe at the Stadium of Light on that kind of afternoon. And again, we didn't really kind of create that much, and we weren't much of an attacking threat. But at the other end, it was only a slip from our defender, Tenai Watson, who we had on loan from Reading at that time, that allowed McGeady to get the ball on the left side of the box and then bend it across into the far corner. And in the end, that was the kind of difference between the 2 sides. So I think that game was a close one as well. I don't think either side really. Again, maybe a draw would have been a fairer outcome. But again, as I mentioned
on
earlier,
that game in particular,
individual error led to McGeady be given that opportunity. And then, of course, last season, of course, we didn't get to play you at home in the end because obviously the well-documented COVID. But obviously at the Stadium of Light, August of 2019, obviously Chris Maguire, stole the accolades and got the match ball under his arm as well. And again, it's a situation where we could have been a lot more diligent in defence and maybe not allowed him those particular chances. There could have been further goals. We were back in it briefly with Kwesi Appiah, I think, with a header from a set piece from Luke O'Neill. But so, yeah, they've been 3 very, very interesting games, very kind of contrasting games. And of course, we lost on the very first visit to the Stadium of Light as well in April of 2000 when we were heading out of the Premier League under our Norwegian manager Egil Olsen. So not a particularly sort of a happy sort of hunting ground Sunderland away. I think we got a draw, a defeat, and a loss when we played at Roker Park prior to that. So again, not particularly a happy hunting ground, but again, a situation where we've shown what we can do against the sort of the better sides this season. We've shown our weaknesses certainly against the teams a bit lower down, the inability to kind of kill them off. I mean, we've been beaten at home by Shrewsbury, who are 3rd from bottom. We can only draw Burton, who are still bottom of the league, and that's where they were when we played them 6 or 7 weeks ago. Yeah, well, yeah, absolutely. So I mean, it just shows the kind of capabilities there, and also you lost to the unmentionables as well, which wasn't that was one of our days off, and I was following that on Soccer Saturday. I thought, oh, please God, don't let them, let them lose to them. But sadly, you did. So yeah, it just shows it's inconsistency maybe for kind of both sides. But you've shown today, certainly. I mean, again, I don't know whether it was whether you would set it down as a really, really brilliant day against Sunderland and everything suddenly clicked into gear, whether it was a bad day at the office for Lincoln or maybe a blend of the two. And whether you, as I mentioned to you before we started, Jack, is that something now that is going to give you optimism for the coming weeks? And have you fitted all the relevant players into into the tactical positions where they need to be to give you the maximum return? And is that going to be, like I say, the drive up into the kind of up towards the automatic kind of places in the new year that you guys obviously demand?
Yeah, I mean, I'll ask Giles as soon as I've answered. We are slightly running out of time, but I'm confident with Lee Johnson in the direction we're going in, Giles.
Oh, I am, mate, 100%. It's a breath of fresh air. But if you get off Sunderland's history, we normally do well when we get rid of a manager and the new one comes in, like head coach comes in. We normally do well. We do down on a little run, Poirier, Di Canio, name it. The list goes on.
This goes on.
Dennis Smith. It took over from Laurie McMenemy, of course, in the 80s, and took you straight back up.
Oh, the 80s, yeah. That's some of my memory. That, yeah.
Bit before my time.
Before my time.
Yeah, man, I was born in '86. No, but like I was saying, like we say, we chop and change managers. It goes well for a couple of games, and then they slip back into the old routine. I just hope it doesn't happen with Lee Johnson. With Wimbledon on Tuesday, every game's different. I honestly didn't think that like the teams who's down the bottom, any is just as bad as the teams at the top, or just as good. Sorry, like it's every game's hard. Look, we got beat off EFC Wimbledon. We drew with Burton. No, sorry, what am I talking about? MK Dons. It's with MC on that. I didn't want to mention them. It's with
Josie, I'll let you off, buddy. No problem, mate.
It's with the MK Dons. We got beat off them. I don't want to say the name.
MK Dons.
We drew with Burton and we got beat off Wigan, and they're all down the bottom. So you've got to look at it like that. Not every game's a certainty.
Yeah,
I think it's going to be a tough game on it. I'm going to go for a 2-1 win. I cannot see us just bashing them. I really cannot, because.
Oh well, I can.
Yeah, yeah, probably, Mike. But like I'm saying, it's like
we defend like today, then you got a good chance, Charles. Trust me.
Yeah, you never know. I don't think he's going to make the same mistake twice. I don't think he's just, like you're saying, capitulate like you did against Charlton today. I was watching the game. I was the 2-1 up. Oh, that's going to go good for us.
You're watching the Sunderland game.
What?
You're not watching the Sunderland game, man.
Oh, well, I've got the telly on and all. I've got the telly on and the phone, so I'm like looking at both, checking the scores. I write stuff down.
I don't have the mental capacity to do that. Like that later on, as we are running slightly out of time to the last part of the preview predictions. Michael, I'm going to go to you first.
Okay, I'm going to predict that we're going to have a big old team meeting between now and Tuesday evening. And we're going to sort out a defence. I'm going to maybe buck the trend of the previous 3 meetings up to the Stadium of Light, and I'm going to maybe go for a hard-fought 1-1 draw. I think maybe we learn our lessons. And Sunderland, the size of opposition, the size of ground, where sometimes we can go to and really dig in and put in a resilient performance. I'm not sure if we've got enough in place maybe to get all 3 points, but certainly I wouldn't put a draw maybe to be beyond us.
Yeah, Jazzy, dead quick's run out of time prediction.
Just with the new fresh start, I'm going to go for 2-1. I think, like Michael was saying, Piggott's a goal scorer, and I think he'll get the one for Wimbledon, AFC Wimbledon.
And I'm going to go with Sunderland 3, AFC Wimbledon 0. Plenty of the optimism. However, lads, keep the faith.
Keep the faith.
Yeah, lads, thanks to both of you for coming on. As I say, we are running slightly out of time. Zoom's about to cut us off at any moment. Thanks to everyone watching as well. Please remember to like the video, share it on if you've enjoyed it, subscribe if it's your type of thing. We are trying to hit 150 by the end of the year if we can. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.